And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully, you are here today because you would like to hear a bit more and delve a bit deeper into quantitative analysis in general, right? If not, you're in the wrong Teams meeting. I know we're having a lot of trainings these days. Make sure you're in the right room. Please also note that we will be recording today's session, as I mentioned, so others can view it later, and you can go back to it as well. As a reminder, today's session is meant to be a follow-up session to one of the MENA-MEL trainings held on December 7th that focused on the fundamentals of quantitative analysis. And in case you missed that session, hopefully you were able to view the recording that we shared in the invitation. If not, please make sure to view it at some point, since it's an excellent way to get familiar or have a refresher on the theory and key consideration when it comes to quantitative analysis. My name is Sabina Topolansky. To those who don't know me or we haven't worked together before, I'm a senior ML specialist with ELP, supporting our Asia division, and it's an absolute honor to introduce my fellow facilitators, our amazing regional mail managers, Mohammed, Ivan, Sergio, and Ganesh. So would you all mind introducing yourself, please? Let's start with Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Sabina, and thank you everyone for joining us early today or evening, depending on your time. Thank you for your contribution. My name is Mohammed Allaham. I'm the regional mail manager for the MENA region, and I will be with you throughout the training, and hopefully we will answer any questions that you might have regarding quantitative data analysis. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Mohammed. Sergio?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sergio, and I'm the mail manager supporting the LAC region, and very happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Ivan, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ivan Twemanya. I'm based in Uganda, Kampala. I'm glad to be a part of this training. Greetings from the Pearl of Africa.
Thanks so much. And Ganesh, please.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Ganesh Thapa and I'm from Nepal, Asia Regional Mail Manager. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here today to present and to facilitate the quantitative data analysis. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So if we go to our next slide, you'll see a couple of housekeeping rules that you'll all be familiar with at this stage. As usual, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. You're of course welcome to participate using the chat function at any point during the session. And even if we do not immediately respond to your questions or comments, we will intentionally pause periodically throughout the presentation to address your questions and share resources. And last but not least, we will prompt several discussion questions using the chat, so please join the discussion however you feel comfortable contributing. I know today's session encompasses attendees from several divisions, but please do try to participate as there is no such thing as a bad question today. So just keep the no filter mentality in mind. And as for most sessions, we always track attendance. So please do fill out the attendance survey that Mohammed shared in the chat. In case you can't open the link or have any issues with the form, let us know and we will troubleshoot with you following or afterwards the session. So what will we cover today? There will be 4 main sections. First, a quick overview of qualitative and quantitative methods, more of a theoretical refresher, followed by a technical level of measurements and statistical test analysis portion. Part 3 will cover a descriptive data analysis live demo that will focus on data analysis to address programs and research questions. And last but not least, part 4 will continue with descriptive analysis with a focus on graphical summaries and use of data. So the aim from today's session is essentially for you to be familiar or a bit more familiar with different type of data analysis methods, with quantitative data analysis, basic plans with descriptive statistics, center tendency, and its usefulness. We hope you get the ability to analyze quantitative data easily in Excel, ability to develop findings and draw conclusions based on data analysis. And finally, we hope that you become a bit more familiar with descriptive analysis when it comes to graphical summaries and how to use them in reports. And we are fully aware that there is quite a bit packed into today's session, but that is why we will have the recording available so you can look back at any point, and we will continue to be available afterwards the session at any point, right? Your regional point of contacts within ELP if you have any questions. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mohammed to kick us off for the first part of the training.
All right. Thank you so much, Sabina. And thank you everyone who's joined us today. So even though today we will mainly focus on quantitative analysis and specifically on descriptive analysis of the quantitative analysis, we would like to start by just give a small comparison and overview between the quantitative and the qualitative methods, what the difference and how they are being approached. So for the quantitative analysis is basically a research method that characterizes data collected by numbers. So if you're actually looking at data through numbers, that's mainly a quantitative method. And also the result is usually represented either by statistics, a graph, or tables. So tables, graph, numbers, those means quantitative methods. And also tells us more about the big picture because we do have a limited sample size and we do have a sampling methodology. So it usually provides a more of a trend of something going on from a big picture perspective. So it guys actually enhance our understanding of the situation at the site level or at the program level that we're working with. And it would help us recognize trends and resulting from the intervention. So because numbers, we can manipulate numbers in a way to see if there's something going upward, something going downward, and things like that. So basically, that's the quantitative methods and how it's being handled. Now, compared to the qualitative methods, the qualitative methods are more exploratory. Like you can explore different things. You can go in depth in certain degrees, and you can explore things that are not feasible within the quantitative method. And usually we use it when we don't know what to expect and we want to know why something is happening and how is that happening rather than what's going on. So quantitative answers the question of what's going on. The qualitative tells us why is something happening, how is it happening, and just gives us information from the perspective of the groups of the individuals that we're working with. So basically it's just a way to put ourselves in our stakeholder shoes and see from their eyes and see what's going on and explore from that. So it can generate case studies, so we can and summaries rather than list of numbers, tables, and charts. So we can have a more of a case study, we can have a more of a narrative approach. So this is the main difference between the two. So for this particular presentation, we will focus on the quantitative part. So we'll move on to discuss some of the strengths and weaknesses of the quantitative research. Some of the main strengths, the main strength, it actually very number estimates. It provides us a number you can understand, you can read. It's very straightforward. There is no room for different interpretations. Numbers are numbers, right? And also, it can be opportunity to analyze uncomplicated data. Sometimes you just get us more of uncomplicated analysis rather than the qualitative part. It has a lot of nuance and approaches and some of the biases that you need to be aware of, rather than statistics or the numbers or quantitatives are very straightforward, not complicated as much as qualitative part, but it needs some of the more of a technical understanding to a certain extent. Data are verifiable. You can verify certain surveys, like you can easily verify that rather than relying on stories and narrative. It's easier to verify the data in quantitative search. And also, you can compare the data set. If you have numbers from a group A, you can compare them to group B. If you have numbers from group or location A, you can compare it to location B. So you can easily manipulate that and compare it, so you can have a more of a trend of what's going on. And it really does not need analytical judgment beyond consideration of how the information is going to present it. So you don't really worry about how the information will be analyzed. We're going to more emphasize on how you're going to present these numbers in a way that is easily digestible, that actually describe the situation and the process. Now, those are great main strengths for the quantitative research. However, it does come with some of the drawbacks or some of the negatives or weaknesses. So the weaknesses of the quantitative, since it's a semi-rigid approach, it does not really have, like, it will provide us some gaps in the information, especially in the questionnaires or the data checklist. If we do not include them from the beginning, we might miss out on that. So we might have some gaps between what we design and what's actually happening in the field, because it's mostly close-ended approach. And also, it can be a bit labor intensive to collect data, especially when you go to a larger sample. It can get more of a labor intensive in doing that a little bit. And also, it can limit participation by the person's content of the questionnaire, how they interpret the information, or the direction of the information collection process. So different people can interpret the questions that we ask differently, since there's no room for conversations like the qualitative part. Like, they read the question, they think of it as whatever they want to think of it. They can actually draw their own conclusions without anyone's guidance or someone that can follow up on and probe for further information. So basically, those are the main list of pros and cons between the quantitative research. Now, moving on to the next slide, you will see how to choose the right method for whether we want to do a qualitative or a quantitative research. Again, if we're looking for a quantitative methods, if your answer would be, if you're looking for a broad, comprehensive understanding of the situation, the quantitative methods is your best bet. If you want to see a more of a socio-demographic characteristics, if you want to slice that by location, by gender, or by other groups, by any means that is comparable, also quantitative would be your best bet. If you want to have more of comparison, that would be also quantitative. So, and also when you're looking for accurate and precise data, your best bet is also for the quantitative, given we're dealing with numbers and so on. And if you are looking to produce evidence on the type and the size of the problem, also that's a quantitative part, and also would help if you actually know clearly in advance what you're looking for. If you have a good grip on what you are looking for and you want to validate something, quantitative would be your best approach. On the other hand, if you wanted a deeper understanding and an in-depth understanding of a specific issue, I would say a qualitative would be your best bet here. Qualitative also can be used to understand the behavior, perception, and the way priorities that are being affected by a certain community. It can actually explain the information provided through the quantitative data. We said, like, the quantitative parts ask us the what questions, answer the what's going on, but why and how is this going on, that would need more of a qualitative approach. So basically, we need to emphasize that a little bit in order to do that. So if we have a rough idea of what's going on, or we really don't know what's going on, or we want to understand the trends and of the outcome level, or we want to know what's actually happening, the qualitative part is more of a suitable for that. So that being said, just to give you an idea why we want to choose a certain method over the other. But again, in this particular set, we will focus on the quantitative side. So if you go into this slide, you'll see, if you look at it from a Q&A perspective, if you want answers controlled by the sequence of questions determined by possible answers, like what and how many, if those are your questions, what's going on, how many, like what type of intervention is happening in a certain program, or how many town hall meetings are happening in a certain area, or how many initiatives are happening, then these kind of questions, the best answer for you for that one is to provide the quantitative analysis. However, if you're asking the how and why question, as we reiterated earlier, that's more of an open-ended nature that would need more of a qualitative approach. So again, quantitative looks at specific aspects from the outside. The qualitative looks from the whole context, from the when. We're looking from the perspective of the participants. We search for patterns, and then lends itself to the community participation, so we can see a deeper perspective or a deeper understanding of what's going on in the field. So when that continues, we can say some of the methods that we can use between the quantitative and the qualitative. For the quantitative, we can have, quick counting estimates, sampling surveys, population movement tracking, registrations, and even structured interviews. All of these can be quantitative methods, right? And on the other hand, for the qualitative method, some of the tools that we use is individual interviews or key informative interviews. Those tend to be semi-structured. And the difference between structured interviews and semi-structured interviews, structured interviews are more rigid, where you have, specific questions. You just need to apply by them in a certain order. While the semi-structured interview, you'll have more of an interview guidance or an interview protocol that you can actually play around and be flexible depending on where the conversation is going, and you can have a conversation or a dialogue that goes in a certain direction, and some of the questions might emerge during that conversation. So it's a more of a natural conversation rather than the structured interview, where it's a bit more fixed. And also, you're familiar with focus group discussions and observation. All of these methods can be considered quantitative. And the analysis part, and the analysis for the quantitative, we can use deductive methods, descriptive statistics, and inferential statistics. For the purpose of this training, we will be focusing on descriptive statistics, and my colleagues within these slides will go in depth on how to perform them, what's the tools, and we have actually a practical examples. We will cover that. The rest are just for reference if you want to expand on that a little bit, and so on. For the qualitative, we can use inductive reasoning. We can have systematic processes that integrate data, describing the meaning and finding, and so on. But the analysis itself is a bit more descriptive. But for the essence of this session, or today's session, we will be focusing on the descriptive statistics, and we will cover that in depth as we move forward. Now we have a quick checklist for quantitative methods and data collection plan. Since we're going to be focusing on the quantitative data and how to collect it, analyze it, and we just covered some of the pros and cons and how it differs from the qualitative. Let's just say we wanted to start with the quantitative data. That's our main focus. So one of the things that is very helpful is this basic checklist that is in front of you. And if you follow this, you will probably be in a very good shape in order to start the quantitative analysis journey in a very good start, where you can actually be in a good hands or very good prepared for that. So the first thing you do, as usual, we need to write your research guiding questions in a very articulate manner and very clear. We want to know what you want to see by the end of the survey or by the end of the data analysis. So just keep that in mind, write that clearly, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to ask, and what kind of answers you're looking for. Once you establish your research questions, then you can go ahead and we would decide on the variables. We can say independence and dependent variables. And if you confused by these terms, more of these statistical terms, think of it as the independent variables is something that is not depending on other things. Let's just say since I have a soda can in front of me, this is the example that comes to mind. So if you actually want to study the increase or the link between an increase of blood sugar in a group of individuals, the independent variable is the drink they consume. If they're going to consume diet soda or non-diet soda, the regular one. So that's the variable that you are looking for. That's a variable that's independent, sorry. The dependent variable is how the effect of that drink they will consume on their sugar level. Is it going to increase? Is it going to decrease? So if you transfer that to our terminology in the terms of the program that we work with, if you train certain group of people on coalition building or on political party trainings and so on, these kind of information that you provide them, those are the independent variables for you. And whether that will increase their participation or decrease their political participation in certain events, that would be the dependent variables. So decide what are you going to measure, what is that that's the dependence on something else, and what is the independent, and then you can develop your hypothesis, which is the if and then statement, which is usually some very close to the theory of change, but not quite. So we want to say, if we provide a certain level of trainings, will that increase knowledge or not increase knowledge, decrease participation, increase participation, these kind of things. So once you put these kind of things in perspective, you want to decide the target audience for you. How many people you want to interview, survey? Is it going to be a representative sample, not a representative samples? Are you looking for geographical distributions and so on? Think about these questions and define who will be the subject of these kind of interviews or surveys, and what kind of responsive you will get that, and then decide on what's the data gathering method or the data collection tool. Is it going to be a survey? Is it going to be a structured interview or something like that? One of the methods that we discussed earlier in the quantitative methods. And then you will select the research design, which we will focus on only the descriptive. This is because of the basics of the work that we do. We don't usually go to a correlation, a quasi-experimental or experimentals, just because of the nature of the work that we do and for the present of the time of within this training. So that will be the main focus for the descriptive. And again, my colleagues will do an excellent job to explain that further and provide practical examples on what that entails. And then the data analysis that can be univariable, bivariables, or multivariables. If you go back to the soda can example that I had, if you're linking between one drink consumption with the depending variables, it's just looking for one thing that is changing, then that would be univariable. If that's bivariable, they're looking for two things, probably blood sugar and obesity rate. Those can be bivariable. And multiple variables, if you're looking for more than two things that might be affected by a certain intervention or a consumption of a drink for say. So once that happens, we will determine whether we will use descriptive on interventional statistics. And again, for this purpose, we will focus on descriptives. We're generally just giving an overview. My colleagues will do a better job with me at explaining how that entails and what that process would look like. But we're not going to look into the interventional statistics, which basically a list of statistically approved tests, such as the t-test, the correlation, the ANOVA. Those are more of a technical terms for statistics that we will avoid for this session to keep it more relevant to the work that we do and more digestible so we can have more of a practical side rather than go into the nitty-gritty of the statistics. So with that being said, since our focus will be on descriptive statistics, we're just going to give a bit of an overview of what that means, since that's going to be the meat of the presentation or the essence of today's session. So the descriptive statistics usually used to summarizing frequency of numbers or the measure of center tendency. And you guys I'm 100% sure that you have done descriptive statistic in your work, whether you have, especially when you have the Likert scale, when you have questions in the survey, how often do you agree with the following statements? Strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, doesn't agree at all, or slightly disagree, or something like that. I'm sure you have run across these questions before. So the frequency of a certain answer being repetitive in a certain questions, that's the frequency study. That's more of a descriptive. When you can say we have 100 participants, 15 of them have, said they strongly agree on a topic and so on. Those are the, explanation of the frequency measurement. And the center tendency, which is the mean and the median and the mode, those will be also covered in the practical session that we'll have. But again, there was one of the most common ones that you guys, I'm sure you have done before, is the average, especially when you do a pre and post test analysis or a survey analysis of some sort. You probably looked into the averages. So all of this will be summarized in graphs. So it actually, the two important things we wanted to highlight with this one is that we want to communicate information and we want to support this information with reasoning and evidence, and I'm 100% sure that you have done this before for your reports, for your quarterlies. You communicated a certain degree of information, you provided a graph to that information and provided supporting numbers and evidence for that. But today we will go a bit in depth on what does that mean and how actually systematic this process will look like, and give it more of a scientific reasoning to that. With that being said, the main tool that we will discuss today is the center tendency, which we will focus on the mean, median, and the mode. We will not be focusing on the dispersion and the skewness of the data, because that's a bit of a not usually a lot practice or practical within our in our line of work. So for that, I would pause and reflect for now. Just if you guys have any quick questions or anything you would like to share in the chat, that will be the end of the overview or the summary of this section. And then I will kick it off to my colleague, Ivan, to take us to the statistical and the measurement of the statistical data analysis. So you can just take that part. So thank you again. And if you have any questions, if you have anything you would like to share, anything you would like us to emphasize, please feel free to type in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat with my colleagues, and I will kick it off to Ivan for now.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad, for the great presentation. You've made my work much easier. And since if there's no any questions, comments, let's kick it off. So, building on what Muhammad has just shared us, and one of the things that I've realized, especially when we were working with the data, the moment we get the data, we get excited and rush into analysis. But my advice would be, take a deep breath, take a pause, and first ask yourself, what is, first of all, what do I need to get out of this data, like your area of concern? Two, what is this data? Define your data. Because take an example of like a survey, you're having demographic data, you're having, for example, looking at satisfaction levels of your respondents in the governance or in elections. So all these kinds of questions have different fall under different categories of data. And you need first of all understand that. And because after understanding that, that's when you make define, have come with the better measure. Two, even it helps you in coming up with the appropriate measurement method, tools, and processes. So these are some of the four kind of categories that we would want to kind of discuss in this session. And we'll just start with the nominal one. So basically, in simple terms, what is nominal data? And this is basically sometimes called labeled or named data, and that is something that is kind of assigned to groups. So, for example, you look at this kind of data that you've collected, and you had like demographic characteristics of your respondents, which is normally one of the first questions we have in a background data, and we have gender. So in this, if you have gender, what are the possible statistical measures that you can apply to kind of interrogate gender? And remember, we're talking about descriptive statistics. We are not going to build inferences and stuff. We just want to say, for example, the mode. And this can be very helpful after understanding that you are dealing gender is a nominal data, which has the lowest level of measurement, discrete categories. And by the way, as you really know, most importantly, we understand that it has no natural order. It's not like sequenced in a natural order. And because of that, then it would be great that you have, for example, think of stuff like, okay, in this category, in this my data category, the possible and most appropriate statistical measures I could look up are kind of like, for example, mode, which is just a simple one, whereby when you're looking at mode, you're looking at the occurrences of how many people are male, how many are female. And you can just stop there. You can just generate your descriptive data in forms of frequencies by just looking at the mode. But you need to be guided by knowing and categorizing that this is the nominal data that I'm dealing with. Next. Then another category is ordinal. Now, ordinal is as in simple terms, this is whereby, whereas nominal data is classified without natural order or rank, the ordinal data has a poorly-defined and natural order. This is kind of like the opposite of the nominal one. And in this case, these ordered categories, so we can look at the example of, say, the Likert scale. And this is where we normally have like our survey questions like, how satisfied are you with elections in Alexandria? Now, very satisfied, dissatisfied, neither satisfied, and you have all these Likert scale kind of responses. So in that observation, being cognizant of that, then you can now say, oh, okay, this is an ordinal data. We have this Likert scale, for example. Then the plausible statistical measure that I can look at could be like all the nominal level tests. We have the median, but I just want to pick one element here, the correlation. And this is somewhere where normally confuse correlation with causal inferences. So whereas, remember we're talking of descriptive statistics, then here we will be actually only seeing or analyzing the correlation, not saying, not the cause. So because something is correlated to the other, does not necessarily mean that it caused the other. If, for example, the correlation could be looking at participation in or receiving civic awareness campaigns vis-a-vis where the person attended. They could be correlated, but they cannot necessarily mean that because I attended a civic awareness campaign, that's what made me go to vote. Having said that, and that's why we're looking at descriptive statistics, but when we are looking at inferences, then we can go deeper and bring that causal inferences. But in this case, we have to bear in mind that under descriptive statistics, and in this case, when you have data and ordinal data like this, then one of the most advisable approaches is to look at the correlation rather than the causal inference. Let's go ahead. Yeah, then another one is the interval, and as the name itself sounds, this is, for example, where we all know that in an hour we have 12 hours in a working day, 12 hours. The temperatures, but most importantly, and something that is relevant to us also is, for example, even age actually can also be taken as an interval scale data. But most importantly here is that when you are dealing with interval data, therefore, what are some of the possible statistics measures that you can actually apply? We have this normal, the mean, the all ordinal level statistics, and I'll just pick one, the standard deviation one, for the interest of time, just to have a little bit more discussion on that, is that when we are dealing with interval, it's actually more advisable to look at, for example, the standard deviation, and by simple terms, like looking at, for example, how does the our data move away from the central point and how close or far it is. And in this case, if we, and you can just look at an example now, imagine if we were having this interval data and we immediately thought, oh, this is interval data, and we apply, say, for example, nominal analysis approach. Yes, we will get the data, the analysis will be conducted, but what type of data will we have generated from this kind of applying this approach? So personally, to me, what I would advise, especially the main takeaway from this talk, is that data is good, but it's only as good as the level of analysis you've given it and the approach you've used it to analyze that data. Understand this data, apply the appropriate analysis measure, and you'll get the best results. Let's go ahead. Yeah, and then we go on the ratios, straightforward. Again, these are numerical standard values. We can have weight, height, time, and all these things. They are most precise and ordered, the exact values, equal interview, and most importantly, zero is not an arbitrary or neutral zero. So in other words, when you are dealing with this kind of data, be mindful, like especially when it's unlike when you, for example, you're dealing with the interval data, be mindful of, say, taking zeros as arbitrary or natural zero, and then our normal non-existence of zero now. But again, as all nearly, this is, I think, one of the easiest one. Most of the statistical operations are possible, and we can even have some descriptive and differential statistics that we can apply into this. Next. Yeah, so in summary, So when you get the data, just these are the key characteristics that you can look at. Is it labeled? Then if it's labeled, then it can apply to nominal, ordinal interval at all. But if it's ordered, then it's not nominal. And then that means, remember the other kind of statistical approach we were talking about, then if it is not nominal, but is this ordinal interval or rational, then you apply what statistical approach should I apply? Then you go back on the drawing board. Is the known difference, again, also explains that. And again, most importantly, what we're talking about, 0 is arbitral, 0 means none. And this case, if it's not applicable for nominal anyway, and then you can distribute it accordingly, and that will help you to understand your data better and understand the best approach to apply. Next. Yeah, and again, if we look at the level of measure vis-a-vis the statistical set again, it doesn't mean that, yeah, as we said in the beginning, mean, mode, median, frequency distribution, and range, add a subtraction, they are not applicable any as in at random. We normally take this every time we get the data, we just run mean, even when mean is not the appropriate measure. So after understanding your data, then go back and say, okay, now what's the best measurement should I use? Should I use the mode, median, mean, frequency distribution? And this table would be very helpful in terms of guiding you onto that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ganesh for to take us on. But is there any burning question, or we can put the questions into the chat or save them at the last? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. And okay, and the Ivan and the Mohammed has already described about the quantitative descriptive statistic, and I'm just going to demonstrate some live data analysis and the how we can calculate and use the tools descriptive statistic analysis like the center tendency, mean, median, and mode. Just a very quick overview. The mean is the average of the data set, so that means we can say average number of the data set, and the mode is the most common number in the data set, that is the frequently repeated numbers, and the median is the middle of the set of the numbers, like the lowest to upper, and we can set the middle numbers. That is the we are going to analyze here, and how we can use that mean, median, mode within our analysis. Mohammed, can you please go next presentation slides? Okay, today we have a we have defined here 4 questions, and that question is very surfacely we are trying to relate within our programmatic questionnaires. So here we have attached one questionnaire, sample survey questionnaire. So on the other hand, in the Excel file, there is the data, raw data set. And this is the questions. What type of training do youth leader prefer to have? And what methods, online, in person, both, or training, do people prefer to participate? And the third is training methods preference different between male and female? And fourth is where to focus more for quantitative qualitative interview, because we collect the quantitative data like during the training, pre-test, post-test, and there will include some questions, but sometimes we lag and we will not have a sufficient data, so we have to prepare for qualitative data collections based on the quantitative data, and how we can plan qualitative data collection, that we will discuss also part of this data analysis. Can you open this Acrobat file, Mohammed? Otherwise, I can share maybe screen.
Yeah, I would stop presenting now. I would give you complete control because I know you're going to need to do some manipulation of the data.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mohammed, can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, here is the sample question. This is the very purely sample question, just the for demo, and I didn't mention anything in the title and things. So these are the research questions that I have already mentioned in the presentation. So for this research question, we have developed very short and quick questionnaire here to respond to explore the answer for this question. So survey questions, okay, name, sex, we included age and the kind of training sessions have you participated. So other is the what type of training method do you like to participate, and please rate your level of satisfaction with the provided training. And here is the some feedback, and the data set I have also included some pre and post test scores. So within this questionnaire we will try to explore the answer of these questions. Okay, here in the presentations, okay, let's go the Excel file. Okay, this is the raw data. We have just the raw data and demo for just for the data analysis for today sessions. So here is the data, and we have a first questions here. What type of training do youth leader prefer to have? So we can do very simple way here. I did already analysis here. We can analyze mode for this research question answer. We have a data variable here within a raw data, the training sessions. Within the training sessions, we have variables, defined variables here, training sessions, communication strategy, policy plan, community development plan, policy implementation, and coordinations, effective engagement with women. That is the our training sessions, and we are going to calculate mode value because this is the nominal data. So there is the no value or meaning of this 1 2 3 4 5, just we code it here for the statistic analysis. So we did the mode analysis, and here is the mode value is 3, and this 3 value is, we can see here in the variables, this is the communication community development plan. So the question answer here, we would answer here the most common value, repeated value is 3, that is the community development plan. So we can see here what type of training do youth leader prefer to have. So we can see the community development plan youth leader prefer to have the training upcoming days, or they are having that training. So how to analyze that data? It's a very easy. We can do here within a raw data. First, you have to code data for the number because we cannot statistic test within this text. This is the text, so we have to given the number. So I did here, this is the in the column D, here is the training sessions. I given the number 1 2 3 4 based on the our variables. So to analyze the data here, go to the data. So here you can see the right corner data analysis button in the Excel. So if you don't have this button, so you can add this button options through this setting. Go to the file, here is the options, go to options, and in the options you can go add in the add-in, here is the manage Excel add-in, and go to the here, then you can add here analysis tool packs and analysis tool packs VBA. So you need just to click here analysis tool pack. So I have already this, so I didn't do that. So just to go to here, click data analysis, and within a data analysis you can see lots of the statistic package here within Excel. So we don't need to any third-party software to do statistic analysis. So here you can see descriptive statistics. So click here descriptive statistic, and this is the box you can select here. So input range, here input range means which variable you would like to calculate for the statistic, descriptive statistics. So here we are going to calculate these training sessions for the research questions 1. So click here and select the all the data set. So it's again I will do this. Click here and select the all data set, and here we have a first row label in the first row. So that is, we have defined the first row is the as a label. So click here in the label in the first row, then go to the summary statistic, and you don't need to click confidence level for the mean because we are not going to statistically test anything. So we don't need to any other value, secondary value, highest and the lowest range. So you don't need to do anything, just the click here summary statistic, then click OK. So it will give you the statistic test here. You can see here mode value. The mode value is 3. Okay, then you can check the reference number here within a variables. So this is the training sessions and the mode value is 3. So that means the most common repeated number is 3. That is the community development plan. So that is the way. Other way, you can also analyze that data very easy way without any statistical test. That is the doing pivot table. So you can also do this as a second way, second options, like going to the insert, go to the pivot from the table, select your data range, and the Excel automatically select all the available data sets. So go to the click OK. So here is the training sessions. So you can put in the row, and the also you can put this as a value. You can see also here the maximum people are participated in the community development plan. Out of 80 peoples, there is the 54 peoples participated in this training. So that means we can say these training are most preferred training for the youth leaders. So next questions we have here: what methods online in person both or training do people prefer to participate? Here we have a variables research questions here. If you see here, what type of training method do you like to participate? Here we have a 5 options: online in Microsoft Team, online in Zoom, online in Google Meet, and all of them others. So here is the 5 option. Out of 5 option, we can do very simple way doing pivot tables and we would say also the cross tabulation. So here is, I'm going to use same data set we have already done here. So let's do again by raw data. Go to the pivot table range. This is the range already selected, so we don't need to select again. Here, first put here the row training sessions. Then within a data set, click the training methods in the column sessions. You can put here as a count, value count for the training methods. So here you can see, let me make a little bit bigger so that you can read my screen. Okay, here is the most preferable training community development plan. So out of 80, here's the 54 participant participated in this training. So you can see here within a offline, there is the 24 people out of 54. There is the 24 peoples are preferring offline training in persons, and the remains others, they are preferring second highest number is 12, and the all of them, so they don't care any methods whatever. So there is the 10th third number. So here is the most preferable methods channels for the training is people they prefer the offline in-person training. That is the question number 2 answer. We can answer here. What methods online in person both or training do people prefer to participate? So we would say the offline in person training methods are most preferable by the peoples. So that is the answer. And third is training method preferred different between the male and females? Here is yes, we can do a little bit different here. Let me so first, I have already done this analysis, I will do again. So this is the little bit tricky question answer here, because we have a training here. What type of training method do you like to participate? And what kind of training sessions have you participated in? Based on these two data and this male and female sex, we are going to cross tabulation analysis. And first level we did here, I did first analysis with the sex versus training methods. If you see sex versus training methods, here is the, you can see there is the no tangible difference between the uh, male and female preference. Okay, training methods, because the first highest number is male, they selected online Zoom. Also the female, the first highest people, maximum people prefer the Zoom female. And the second is offline, the male prefer the offline and the female also prefer the offline. So you cannot answer, maybe you can answer here blindly within this cross tabulations. There is the no difference between, okay, there is the no difference between the male versus female preference in terms of the training methods. But here is the, sometimes we do that one level trainings and we answer the research questions, but we have to see if you have available data and we can do more extensive or detail, because sometimes you will not find out the exact answer within a one analysis. So here is the three level of verifications. We can only do verifications within a descriptive analysis. So this is the not statistical test. So this is the verification. So third level verification, what I'm going to do here, just the, I'm going to separate training sessions versus male female versus training method. So I did here under the row, we have a third community development plan training is most preferable training out of 54. Here is the, sorry, out of 80, 54 participant has preference in this training. So if you see that training under the male and female, you will see very huge difference between the preference in the training methods. If you see here, okay, within a male, there is the preference, the first preference, 14 peoples prefer the offline methods, and the second highest is online in Zoom training. But if you see here in the female, you can see different here. 10 people, they prefer offline. Okay. Out of others, 24, the 9 people prefer all of them and they don't have any choices. So if you see this result, so that means we can answer differently than that tabulation. So we can see, yes, there is the difference between the male versus female training method preference, because male has a preference offline, and then if the offline training is not available and they preferred by Zoom, and the female, the preference is offline, and if there is not available offline, then they prefer any of them. Here is the little bit tricky. So here you can see the fourth questions we have here, where to focus more for qualitative data, qualitative interview. You can see here the answer is 9. Female has answered all of them. So there is the no other additional information. Why they choose all of them? Is that mean female are more comfortable all these online systems, or they have a capabilities, or they are experienced to join the online systems? There is the many query or questions that is the unanswered. So based on this evidence, you can also focus how you can collect or what is the exact things in this answer. So you can plan for the interview with the female participants based on this evidence also, so that you can make more impactful or you can revise your training methods or any other plans in the futures programming. So this is the third questions. And how to do this? This is also the cross tabulation. There is the no difference, so it's a very easy. So go to the raw data and you can just choose pivot tabling. Okay, so first training methods you can put here, because sorry, training sessions. we have to figure out which training session is most preferable. So that is we already known community development plan. So put this training methods under the value, and you can put the sex under the row, and you can see the answer here. Okay. These are the answer. You can see first 10 and the male, this is the 14, and here is the 10. So this is the same answer. So that is the one way. Other is how to use the median and mode. Okay, here is I added the another data section here, pre and post test. This is the all coded data, same data. This is just the different. I given the number here for the statistical test. Okay, here is we have a pre and post test score. So based on this data, we can do mean and median because these are the uh, ratio data. So you can do any kind of test. So here I'm going to find out, okay, what is the knowledge increment or what is the progress on the training or what is the change after the training. So you can do very simple way. The first here, I already done the one test here. Okay, the pre-test. I did the pre-test and the also post-test and also the increase score in percentage. So let's go how to do this and how to interpret that statistic mean, median, and mode. How you can find out the utilize that data. Same way, go to the data. Here is the data analysis, descriptive statistic. You can click descriptive statistics. So go to the descriptive statistic here. So first I will go for the pre-test. This is my pre-test data. So the first level in the first row. Second, you have to click here summary statistic. Just then go and click OK. Here is the pre-test data. So here is the lots of the decimal number. I will decrease this decimal number so that we can read easily. Okay. Based on this value, what you can find out here the answer. Okay. Mean value 51, median value 50, and the mode is 45. That means what you can interpret here based on this data very quickly. Okay, mean there is the max and there is the average value, the total number of the, okay, how many people participated here, the but average value is 51. So other is median value, there is the median value is 50, so that is the mid value. Mode value, you can say here maximum people out of 80 people's, maximum people has a 45 in the pre-test within a given this set of questions in the knowledge. So this is the 45, and here you can see the three numbers here. The minimum number, there is the very minimum score is 32 and the maximum score is 79. So the people also in the very lowest number in the pretest 32, and the also the highest number 79, and the range between the 79 to 32 is 47. So this is the exact our baseline status of the training. Once you have a done, or once we have done this training, then let's do the post test like the similar way. You can see here post test score. So based on this data, we don't know what is going on here, but you can do very easily summarize this data. So go to the data again, analyze descriptive statistic, click OK. Here go to the post test, select the data, all data value. Same, you don't need to do anything here. Summary statistic already checking. Okay, here is the post test data. I will copy this to value, test value, so that we can compare. Same thing I'm going to do here. decreasing decimal number. Okay, here comparing mean value, you can easily find out the answer, some observations in your pre and post test, and what is the going on within a training. So in the pre-test, here is the 51 and the mean value, and the post-test here the 66. That means definitely there is the increased knowledge in the average value, but we cannot generalize. Okay, how many people did? Because if there is the 5 people score very high number and it contribute in the average value, and the next level more little bit high, here you can go median value. There is the 50 in the pre-test and the post-test there is the 63. That means you can expect, okay, the median value is increased also. That means you can also more strongly write of your report, okay, there is the increasing knowledge trend. So if you go more value, definitely you can see here the maximum people in the more value maximum people score 45 in the pre-test, but in the post-test there is the 65, the maximum repeating number. That means 65. That means definitely the post-test is progressing. Here you can compare, and also the range. You can see minimum and maximum value. Minimum value there was in the pre-test 32, but in post-test you can see 43, and the maximum value here you can see 79. Here also you can see 97. So that means every value is increasing. So that means you can see the training is progressing and the people participant are increasing their knowledge. So other hand also you can do by pre and post test calculating the increase score in percentage. So here I already calculated in the percentage, so you can also analyze that data more strongly than that uh, that the pre and post test analysis. So let's do here what you can see from this post test increase score. Go to the data. Here is the statistic analysis, descriptive statistic. You can click same. I'm going to put here summary statistic. It's a very easy. So here is the other number. Okay, let's copy this value so that we can compare here other value with other values. Similar. Okay, you can see here. Okay, in the post test you cannot find, okay, what is the exact increased knowledge, because there is, you can calculate mine, you can do the subtract 66 to 51, but it doesn't give the any sense. So because that is not exact percentage calculations. So here you can see increase score in percentage mean value, it's a 15. So you can say in your report at least every people has increased 15 percentage score. That is your answer. So that is they are progressing. If they have, okay, let's say 30 score in the beginning pre-test, then after training they increase at least 15 percentage score or knowledge gain. And median value there is the 10. We don't, it doesn't give any sense. And the more value, maximum people they increase 10%. Here is, you can see what is the minimum increase number. Okay, at least every people has increased the 10 score, and the maximum number, the highest knowledge increase is 40. That means the some people who scored the highest or the who demonstrate higher score, that is the 40. So minimum 10 to maximum 40 uh, percentage score is increase in the training. So you can generalize that way and you can interpret your report whatever you want, and you can plan also based on this data for the future programming. Okay, one more data we have here also, the like Hatter, how you can plan for the qualitative data collection. So let me check also here feedback here. Okay, here is the satisfaction level. We have a questions here. Okay, how satisfy the question number. Okay, please rate your level of satisfaction with the provided training. You can see here satisfaction level. Okay, maximum people are dissatisfied, 44 out of 80. That means more than 50%. So you can see here by sex. Okay, who are the more dissatisfied within a training? You can see the females number is more bigger than the male. So here you can see this is the number. If you would like to percentage calculations, you can easily do by here. You don't need to do anything. Just you can click here, go to the value field settings, and here you can go show value, and here you can calculate okay percentage. So female, that is the column total of the column. So you have to click percentage of column totals. Click OK. So here you can see. Okay, so here out of 100% participant of female, 68% female are dissatisfied with the training, and the only 44% male are dissatisfied. So based on that data, you can explore a little bit more here in the qualitative analysis, because we have given the here pre-writing session. So you can do these pre-writing sessions also within this here, and you can change your statistic. So you can put here female. So you can see here also that data. This is the, you cannot generalize that way, but just need to show up here. Okay, what is going on within a dissatisfactions? So you can see here the more or less all the female are given the comment here, less practical sessions, less participation of the female in the interactions. Female participants were not given adequate opportunity for discussion. So based on this evidence, this is the quantitative and very quick feedback, but based on that data you can also categorize where you have to focus for the quantitative data, qualitative data. So you have to definitely focus on the female participant for the interview, why they are more dissatisfaction, and how we can improve in the future programming, and what we can do more better in the future. So you can choose your respondent based on this evidence for the further more qualitative data analysis. So this is the overview of the live demo, very quick descriptive data analysis and statistics test. And here is the presentation slide that is the similar. So we don't need to go this one by one because I already done the demo. So please feel free to ask the questions, and we have also chat. Thank you very much. Please now I'm hand over to Sergio.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much. Are there any questions before we move on? Okay. Mohammed, could you please put the presentation again?
Yeah, it's taking a few minutes to load. Just hold on. It's loading.
Okay, so to wrap up this training, I want to talk to you about graphical summaries and how we can take all the data that we have from these quantitative methodologies and present them in a way that people understand them. First of all, I have to say that data visualization, or the way that you describe your data, is one of the most important tools of any data analyst. Okay, it helps provide our stakeholders and other team members with quality information by transforming small or massive amounts of data into easily understandable pictures and graphics. So visually displaying data makes it much more accessible, and this is critical for promptly identifying and understanding key aspects of a project, allowing us to make the right decisions for our programs in most cases. Just so that we know, the human brain is not able to understand or even just imagine large amounts of numbers or text at once. It needs a visual representation to make sense of it. and consequently translate raw data into tangible concepts. So, for example, if we try to imagine adding together 5 gallons plus another 15 gallons of a liquid, this is a very abstract idea and it's hard to realize. On the other hand, if you try to imagine adding 5-gallon water buckets with another 15 gallons one together, that's much simpler. So that's what data visualization is in a nutshell, an effective way to give a much more tangible shape to otherwise abstract data sets through colorful pictures, vectors, charts, dashboards, and graphics. So our job as data analysts is to make things simpler for our audience, either our internal audiences or audiences outside of IRI. Next, please. So I want to go over quickly these 4 ways of displaying data: pie charts, bar graphs, stack column graphs, and tables. And I'm sure that everyone in this call has used these resources or these ways of describing data, but it's always good to get a refresher and get some new tips on how you can present and how you can use these tools in a much better way. Starting with pie charts. So pie charts are circular graphs that reflect parts of a whole by different data groups or categories. So here's when to use a pie chart and when not to use a pie chart for your data, okay? Pie charts should be used when your data is mutually exclusive, with no overlap between any of the parts that you are displaying there. So all of the slices or all of the little segments that you have in a pie chart should add up to 100%. They're often used when you work with percentages, but they can also be used to show data, total and proportional item to that total. So that's when to use your pie chart, and when not to use your pie chart. You should only use your pie chart if you have 5 or less data points, as it may be difficult for the human eye to estimate the relative value among many sections. You don't want to have a pie chart with little slices in it, so because it can be difficult to read. Also, you don't want to use a pie chart if you want your audience to know distinct values, and also avoid pie charts when all categories are in similar value, because it doesn't make sense to have a pie chart with similar values. In the next slide, you're going to see an example of a pie chart. And here you can see some tips when using pie charts for your data. When you use a pie chart, you have to always remember to include a title that describes what your data is saying or what you're summarizing. Also, when you use the pie chart, it's also very important to use data labels within the pie chart to clearly communicate the numbers that you are trying to explain. And finally, the data groups or categories that you're expressing within those pie charts should be labeled in any part of the description as a key to understand what you're talking about within that pie chart. Some tips when using pie charts for data visualization is that when you use a pie chart, you should start the first slice of your pie at 12 o'clock at the top bottom part of the pie chart, and then move clockwise from there. Also, when showing multiple pie charts in a single composition, you have to make sure that all have the same size and you're using also the same color as fill, okay, which is visually more easier to follow. If you have more than 6 data points, you should consider not using pie charts and using a bar graph, for example. Next, please. The next tool are bar graphs, and I'm pretty sure that everyone here has also used bar graphs. And these are used to show comparisons between categorical items that are plotted on the x-axis against a set of values that are or measurements along the y-axis. So when should you use a bar graph? A bar graph should be used when you have to show exact values compared across categories or over time. You should not use bar graphs when there's little variation amongst the groups that you're displaying. So if you have little variation between the bars, you should avoid using bar graphs. In the next slide, you can see an example of a bar graph and the way that you should be presenting your bar graph. The same way as in the pie chart, you should always remember to include the title that clearly explains what you're talking about, the data that you're presenting. Also, make sure that the data labels within the bars are clearly labeled so you can communicate the data that you're presenting there. For example, if you want to highlight something that's important from one of the bars, you can change the color so that your eye directly is called toward that graph if you want to make that distinction. And it's always important to start your graphs at 0 in the x-axis. Do not cut off your data, and always try to start at 0, the closest you can to the x-axis. Some tips when you're using your bar graphs, whenever possible, order data on your bar graph from the largest to the smallest or smallest to the largest, okay? And also, you don't want to overwhelm your audience with too many bars in your chart. Next, please. The next tool, which I think is very useful, especially for the type of data that you can have in your programs, are stacked column graphs. Okay, so stacked column graphs can be used to show data that is also mutually exclusive, such as survey questions that limit respondents to select one response option. Always for stacked column graphs, there should be no overlap between the parts, and the same as pie graphs, pie charts, all segments must add up to 100%. Okay. Like pie charts as well, column graphs, stack column graphs are used to visualize less than 5 data groups or categories because it can be overwhelming to have too many data points represented in your stacked column graph. So horizontally stacked column graphs are good at displaying responses, for example, from a Likert scale, responses from the Likert scale. So always remember, when using this type of graph, you must explain the meaning of your statistic or result. And it's just not enough to write the survey question or that 43%, for example, of participants increase their knowledge of election laws. You must explain the significance and the meaning of your finding, not just have it there on your graph. And here's an example of a stacked column graph. There you can see that we have not used more than 5 data points, and that we're starting from the smallest to the biggest data point, and you can do it the other way. You can start from the biggest data point to the smallest. And here, a good way to highlight the data point that you want to highlight the most is to use a different color as well for the bigger data points or the smaller data points. And finally, tables, which are amazing. Tables should be used to report detailed information or values that must be reported precisely, okay? So tables are a great method to replace lengthy text, which is many times what happens when we're writing, for example, weekly reports, or we're contributing to developing quarterly reports. Tables are a great method to replace that lengthy text that describes numeric values. For example, activity attendance with disaggregates. As you know, we should always include the required disaggregates when we're developing a report, especially a quarterly report. And if a table is too large for the body of a report, consider using it as an appendix to your document. Here's also an example of attendance from a workshop. There you can see what type of data would be useful to include when developing a report. Of course, the topic of the workshop, the date that it happened, how many male and female attendees, if we're interested in disaggregating youth attendees from that session also. And remember to always, always, always include the totals for each of the columns or the lines of your tables. So Thank you so much. And I'm gonna hand it over to Sabina, if you have any questions or comments.
Shabina, you are muted.
Sabina, you're muted.
Of course I'm muted. Still after 2 years, guys. Anyway, I was just laughing out loud here on my own when Sergio was saying tables are amazing. That was such a sweet, nerdy moment. And it was wonderful. Thank you so much for all of you, to all the presenters. We have 10 more minutes for questions or clarifications. I know it can be daunting to come off mute and actually ask a question, so feel free to drop them in the chat. And while you're thinking, I just wanted to make sure that there is a response to the question that I asked, because it's not fair to ask and then not give a response, right? So what I was, and Farah gave a great example actually, on ways, if you've been monitoring the chat, ways that you can still complement, right, your quantitative data with additional qualitative questions if you have a questionnaire or have the opportunity to do follow-up calls or follow-up interviews. So those were great examples that you can ask when you're looking at outcome level. You want to capture outcome level data, for example, that might be relevant for your programs. But I was wondering, did anyone, think about additional questions as Ganesh was walking us through the live demo, just really walking us through the data that was, again, very an example data set, but it was very representative of an IRI program, right, that we all are working on in many, many ways. So my response would be to this, and the first question that came to mind was around exploring a little bit around why Zoom calls are, not preferred for female participants, right? Only 2 of them said they preferred that method, so it would be interesting to see why that is. So that's just one example, but then Ganesh also responded to the question as well as he walked through the additional comments, right? When you kind of saw in the pivot table where the responses and comments linked to the dissatisfaction was shown. So certainly there's several levels in quantitative analysis that can be extremely helpful, and we often don't take advantage of them as much as we could, I think. So that's why it can be very, very key to have that as well, despite most IRI programs focusing on qualitative data and relying on qualitative data. But of course, mixed method is always preferred because you kind of need both. You need the what, certainly, to understand the what, right, as Mohammed was alluding to and emphasizing, as well as know the how and the why, right, to understand and put things into context, because sometimes numbers alone won't really mean anything. So I was trying to see if there's any other questions while I was spewing here, but I see none. So Mohammed, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sabina, and thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Sergio, Ganesh, and Ivan for a really wonderful presentation. I enjoyed it myself. I do have a quick of a remark, a tip, or a question and an answer in one session. So the most question that I'm thinking everybody's thinking of right now is, are you guys expected to memorize all of this or understand this in one session, or does that make any sense? This seems like a lot of information, and this is something seems very complicated. I know that's something on the mind of you guys, which I'm here to assure you guys don't have to worry about it. You don't have to understand all the nuances of this. The purpose of this is just to introduce that this tool exists. And the good thing is this recording will be up forever on IRI. I'm definitely, I'm sure of that. And the team, my colleagues, will definitely share the materials and the presentation and get the Ganesh, the Excel sheet, the files that he worked on. We will share these with you guys. So don't focus on what we need to learn. For now, focus on when we need them. And when you feel yourself in a presence of some quantitative data that you want to present, just open this video, try to follow along with Ganesh, with his, the session, the interactive sessions. As long as you can locate the data analysis button and you can play around with it, you're in good shape. You can, there is no right or wrong way to do kind of things. So don't worry about the complexity or the confusion that might happen because of all of these new terms and all of these techniques. Just open an Excel sheet, play around with the data, and I assure you 100% you'll be happy with that. So don't worry about it now. Worry about it when you're actually going to do the quantitative analysis. You'll have this recording, you'll have these materials to guide you. And most importantly, you'll have all of us as point of contact from ELB. So feel free to reach out to us directly, and we will be more than happy to support you in all of these efforts. So I just wanted to throw out that there. If you're feeling intimidated, feeling a bit confused about the quantitative data, I have a confession to make. So am I. I usually get scared when I'm working with quantitative data of all these technical terms that works with it. It can get intimidating. So you're not alone. It happens to all of us, especially with people working with data for a long time. So to think of it as an introduction to what's out there. And when it comes to implementation, we're all happy to support, and we'll have all of our hands on deck, basically. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Very, very well said, Mohammed. Thank you. And yes, I get intimidated by quant data too. I'm a qual person. It's an open secret. So absolutely, it's all, it's a learning for all of us. There was a question from Farah to Mohammed, actually, if you could share a little bit about the t-test that you mentioned.
Sorry, I'm muted. Sorry. So I'm more than happy to. So basically, Farah, the t-test is a statistical test that have been developed, I don't know, years and years ago from some statistical scientist. I'm sorry that I didn't memorize his name. So usually what this test is basically a tool in Excel. And basically, let's see if I can do a quick demonstration in Excel if I have some data. Hold on. So basically, unfortunately, I don't have any files in Excel open in front of me. So basically, I can send you an example. I can send it to the whole group. So basically, it just looks at if you have a certain set of data. So let's just call it the A data and the B data. So, and all of these are linked together, like a pre and post test for an example. So this one is just like a formula that you can just highlight the pre-test, highlight the post test, and then just click on the test, the t-test in Excel, and it will ask you what these data, are they linked or not linked? So basically, you will, if you know, like the pre-test is linked to each individuals, like you know that person A, B, C, D, and C have like the pre-test and the score test linked, so you can put them as linked, and you can just click calculate. Excel will do the calculation for you, and it will give you a percentage. If that percentage is less than 0.09.5 or something like that, that means that this data is actually genuine. That's actually is good data, representative data. It's linked. So we can, with confidence, we can say this data is statistically significant. If it comes up with more than that, it then said there's a lot of margin of error that indicate that this data might be randomized, might not be linked, or something that might be just randomized, not linked. There's no correlation between the two, which means there's a high margin of error to that. So basically, it's just a quick way to tell us if the data that we have, especially for a pre and post test, is statistically significant or not. So that test that was developed by the statistical scientists. I'll make sure to include a short video explaining the t-test, what the history and the origin of it, and that would be more beneficial to anyone. And sorry, I forgot the name of the scientist who invented it, so apologies.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mohammed. So I think we're right on time, and I do want to be respectful of everyone's next meeting, most likely, or signing off of work, right? If you're way over and it's late in the evening, please do sign off. So want to thank all our presenters today very, very much. And we'll be sharing and following up with all the resources that we mentioned, all the examples and some additional resource videos, probably external resources that we might not have internally, because we don't need to duplicate efforts if we don't need to. So we will share all of that hopefully by the end of this week or early next week. So thank you all for joining us and sticking around for all the 90 minutes. You're heroes and sheroes. So thank you so much. Take care, everyone.